money accounts, which required me to print screen the transactions from my phone, copy and paste them into Excel, and then go through them and create T ledgers. For those of you that are accountants will know what that means. Um, it was just incredibly difficult and incredibly cumbersome. So for me, it was a personal mission to find a solution that could solve all problems. And I didn't have high hopes, if I'm completely honest. A solution that would be localized to Ghana, to the payment system here, where everything is largely mobile money, but also have enough of an integration that I could, for example, import our customer and our suppliers database, and also would do the accounting for us. I found all of that in Built and more. So after a quick Google search, I was so happy to find that Built, a company built in Ghana, forgive the pun, and based on the Ghanaian system of payments. The wallet system allowed for mobile money payments as well as bank card payments. The accounting is done straight away when you actually make payments and receive payments. The best part also is their different offerings. You can get a virtual bookkeeper, which I signed up for because although I'm an accountant, I am not a big fan of doing accounting. And with the incredible service that comes from the bookkeeper, but she's so incredible, so diligent, even corrects me on certain accounting treatments and makes suggestions in terms of how we run our accounts. The value add that's actually been provided by Built is absolutely incredible. So I went out looking for a solution. I found what I wanted and more. And all of that from Built Africa, a Ghanaian company in the fintech space, really changing the game, really absolutely disrupting the space, really making life easier for entrepreneurs, and really, really the only solution you need as an accounting software. Our journey before and after Built.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful edition of our Finance Friday series. This series, as you always know, is brought to you by Built Financial Technologies, and we are doing this in partnership with Encore Media. Built Financial Technology is your partner for all your accounting and financial software needs. And if you are operating a business, if you are running a small company and you need a finance software and accounting software, Built is your go-to. And if you are having any event, a birthday, wedding, whichever event, and you need a coverage for, might even be a church event, you can talk to our partners, Encore Media, and they are going to take you. All right, so let's get straight into our presentation for today. Today we are looking at some cost-cutting strategies, and we'll observe, we'll go through some savings that some strategies that you can implement to save your business while still maintaining your quality, right? So without wasting much time, we'll go straight into the presentation. And what we are going to be looking at why there's a need to cut costs, and then we'll also consider a few strategies that we need to put in place to cut costs. And then we'll give you a small tip on something about Built software, how to use the prepayment feature. This is a novel feature that you can use to streamline your operations on Built. So let's get right into it. In today's competitive markets, it's very good to appreciate that SMEs are facing a lot of cost minimization pressure, because now the economy has become such that the average consumer is demanding for lower prices, right? But prices for the business owner is not cheap. Prices of input and prices of cost of labor is not cheap these days. So it has become very imperative and a rising concern for most businesses, especially in Ghana, to battle lowering their products, right, and to fight cost and all of that. That is why we are going through this particular presentation. Basically, we want to look at some of the effective cost management, practices or strategies that you can use without compromising the quality of your products and the quality of your services. First and foremost, to get right into it, why does this even matter? Right? What is the need for cutting costs, or trying to reduce cost and all of that. The very first thing we need to understand is cost has an implication on your profitability. Right, cost has an implication on your profitability. If your business is going to be very profitable, it means that mathematically your selling price, right, should be higher than your cost price. That's what we were taught, that profit is basically the excess of your selling price, which is your revenue, over your costs, right? So the reason why it is imperative to cut costs is because it has profitability implications, right? It has impact on your profit. Great. With that understood, there is also the need to cut costs because it is going to help you become more competitive, right? So let's take it as you and I are two business rivals. We all provide the same services, right? Let's say your service is at 20 cedis per hour and mine is at 15 cedis per hour. We can argue that on the average, the normal customer would like to come to me because the value that the person is getting is the same as he would if he comes to you, right? So the average consumer looks for higher quality but at somewhat affordable price, right? So if you are able to reduce your costs, if you're able to minimize or optimize your costs, what it's going to do for you in your business is that it's going to make you a lot more competitive on the market. I hope that's understood. Great. Now the next point is that minimizing cost also has some implication on your operational efficiency, right? Because cost cutting is going to lead you to, it will force you to streamline your operations in a way that you will improve efficiency, right? So for example, instead of, let's say, employing 10 units of labor, right, or 10 people to move this table, you could use a single machine to move that table. The cost incurred on this particular activity using 10 people is always going to be higher than using a single machine. Of course, the initial cost implication is somewhat high, but over the long term, right, using automated processes, right, with the idea of reducing costs will improve your efficiency. That's the point we are driving at. Now, the final thing also is that, learning to cut your costs or minimize your costs is going to enhance your financial flexibility. Basically, you are going to reduce unnecessary expenses and then improve your profitability. And that will allow you to retain more revenue. So if you sell, you don't need to put all those revenue that you have made in other expenses and other overheads. So these are the reasons why we tell you that minimizing or optimizing your costs is very, very relevant. Right, now with that established, let's go into some of the strategies that you can implement to minimize your costs. The very first one is that you need to understand your expenses, understand your cost structure, right? So make some time to assess your cost structure, your expenses. Have a thorough review, a thorough audit of your expenses. This will let you understand what are essential and what are not essential in your cost structure, right? So for instance, if you are in manufacturing or you are in retail, right, there are certain expenses that you may be incurring without your knowledge, right? Or maybe you may be incurring without your thoughts on them. For example, let's say you need some materials to stock your inventory, right? And you buy them in pieces. What is happening is that you are going to be incurring transportation and material handling costs consistently. Whilst when you are able to purchase in bulk, you would incur these transportation and material handling costs at just a single time, right? So when you review your expenses, you get to understand what are necessary and what are inevitable, right? So it's very important that you make some time, assess your expenses, to look for ways that you can cut down, where you can cut down on your expenses. And by this, that some of the expenses that you are incurring are inevitable, right? Oftentimes we refer to them as fixed costs. They are those expenses that you cannot do away with. Example, your rent, for instance, or if you are leasing a building or a land or a place of your operations, the cost of that rent or that lease is not something that you can do away with, right? So if you understand what your fixed costs are, right, and you know what the variable costs are, it will lead you to, looking at where to cut down on your cost. And of course, you cannot just out of the blue, get up and say you are managing your expenses. You first and foremost need to have a system for tracking your expenses, right? Which is why it is very imperative that you use a software or a tool, right? The basic form that you could use is a spreadsheet tool or a spreadsheet software. The normal ones that we all know is Excel, Google Sheets, and the likes, right? So have a tool that you are using to keep track of your expenses. Don't use pen and paper. Don't use pen and paper, right? There are a whole lot of free to use softwares there for you. Excel, like I mentioned, and even Google Sheets. However, for a better understanding of your stuff, you can use something like an accounting software, which is where Build comes in, right? Build gives you a proper understanding of your expenses, a detailed overview of your expenses for you to be able to know where to cut down, what your expenses were in a particular period, in a particular time, and how to handle and manage all of that. Now, moving on, the next thing that we are going to look at is you finding a way to streamline your expenses or streamline your operations. So find a way to streamline your operations, and we say that just implement a system, right? Implement something that is going to help you to optimize the business processes that you have, because there are certain tasks in your business conduct that are very routine and very mundane, right? Some of these tasks, now there are a whole lot of automating tools that you can use to automate some of these tasks. So for instance, especially when it comes to finances, there are stuff like you writing an invoice to your client, right, and collecting on those invoices. There are stuff like you paying your employees every month or at the end of every week or at the end of every 2 weeks, right? That is your payroll. There's also your reporting. At the end of every month, you want to know whether you are making profit or loss. You want to juxtapose your revenue with your expense sources, right? You want to be able to track your expense. You want to be able to prepare your taxes at the end of every month. These are very routine and mundane activities that your business would have to go through every period, right? So it is very imperative that you automate these processes, or you put in some level of automation on your invoicing, on your payroll, on your reporting. That is why we always say that you need to use a software, right? You need to put in a software to automate some of these processes. And that is where Build comes in. In fact, if you are in Ghana and you have not yet heard about Build, it's good you are watching and listening to us now. Implement your Build. Just visit www.build.africa, right? And then implement Build software to streamline your invoices so that you wouldn't need someone to do invoicing alone, to do payroll alone, to do reporting alone. Yes, in some big corporates, it is very relevant because of the volume of activities that go on there. But now that you are a startup or a small, medium enterprise, it is very good to find a way to optimize your processes. And the benefit here is that, of course, it's going to reduce your labor costs, right? Because like I mentioned, you wouldn't need a lot of people to be doing a few things repetitively, because now you have automation in place. And another thing too is that it's going to improve your turnaround time, so that if you have to write an invoice to 10 customers at the same time, or to 10 customers at a particular intervals, you can automate that on Build accounting software, right? Great. So now moving on, the next thing we are talking about is you leveraging technology. And now there are a whole lot of technological tools available for our use as business owners and as small businesses. I think 2 weeks ago we had a webinar where we spoke about, transitioning your business to an online platform or transitioning your business to a technology-based business, right? There are a whole lot of financial accounting softwares that you can use, right? These are cloud-based ones. Now we have moved away from an in-house system or a local environment system where you need to use a particular laptop or a particular computer to be able to access your business's accounting. Right now we have transitioned into where you can use a device that can be connected to the internet from any place and still be able to access your business, financial transactions. Also, there are many technological tools for human resource management, even for payment systems. There are e-commerce platforms you can look at. There are communication tools. But let's look at a few of them. For cloud accounting software, for instance, we have said this time and over that you can use Built. Right? What this is going to do is it's going to streamline your financial management while it reduces your need for expensive or excessive manual bookkeeping and optimize all the errors that may arise. So use Built accounting software, right, to manage your cloud accounting, processes. Another thing too is that you may have need for human resource staff. You want to manage your HR process. There are a lot of tools out there available. There are the likes of Fresh Teams. Recently there's one I came across, Seamless HR, right? Even on Built, you'll be able to use payroll, right? Because it's a repetitive action that you do every month. There are a lot of payment solutions also. In fact, if you're in Ghana, you're operating a business in Ghana, and you do not have a mobile money, business account, this is the time for you to repent, right? So you need a seamless, payment solution which will provide some form of convenience or some form of, relaxation for your customers to interact or to transact with you. So at least you need to get a mobile money solution, or there are a lot of, third-party wallet providers also in the system. There are the likes of, even on Built, there's a wallet system that you can use to optimize your, payments and stuff like that. You can use Built Wallet to collect payments and to make payments, making your operations very seamless and very, very smooth. There are a whole lot of e-commerce platforms as well. Now in Ghana, there are the likes of Gigi, the likes of Jumia. I think recently there is this one, Bisame app, right, which connects businesses and usually artisans, right, and the normal customer. So if you are in Ghana, you can put your business on an e-commerce platform, put your business on Gigi, put your business on Bisame or Jumia, right, and then sell, because this thing is going to give you access to, a larger customer base, right? So if you are implementing any of these e-commerce platforms, you are able to access customers all through Ghana, all through Africa, all over the world. Right, so it is good for you to implement one of these things. Another one that you cannot do without is communication. In fact, you cannot do without communication. Now, WhatsApp has come to do a lot of interruption for us in our communication. So what a communication tool is going to do for you is basically going to enhance your collaboration with your team members or the people you are working with, right, and then reduce the communication costs. Right, instead of you picking the phone to call Kwesi, invoice matro. If you don't understand Chi, Kwesi, have you written the invoice? Have you invoiced the customer? Stuff like. Instead of using a mobile call, you can simply collaborate on a testing platform like WhatsApp or Slack or ClickUp. Whichever one is good for you. Right, so there are a whole lot that you need to leverage on. The point we are driving at is that use technology solutions to save yourself a lot of cost. Now moving on, the next thing to also consider, the next thing to also consider is to have some form of negotiation with your suppliers, right? So we say that in an increasingly competitive landscape, effective supplier negotiation is vital to optimize cost and to enhance collaboration. Now the first thing is that for your your suppliers or those who provide services or goods to your business, you need to build a stronger relationship with them. Right? Have an open communication, right? That will foster some form of collaboration. And this, what this is going to do is it's going to help you to address concerns early, right, and to resolve issues early, right. The next thing also is that you have a regular, contract reviews. For we have worked with some customers who do some of our clients who render services to big corporates, right, like Unilever, like the likes of Nestle, all these big corporates, right. What they do is they have contract terms with their suppliers. So if your business is one that renders goods or services to these corporates, they have what we call credit days, right? So Unilever might patronize your service or your good, right, and then have a contractual agreement with you to pay you after 30 days. Right, you have credit terms for 45 days, for 60 days, right? So these are contractual terms that you have with your suppliers and with your customers if need be. And at regular intervals, it is relevant that you review these terms, because all that we are looking at is for you to have enough, revenue, or if you like, enough positive cash flow. I think that's what we discussed last week. For you to have enough positive cash flow to run your business. The third thing to also look at while negotiating with your customers is to buy in bulk. Now the thing is, if you have bulk purchases implemented in your business, it saves you from a whole lot of unnecessary expenses. First and foremost, I made a scenario where you are purchasing your your inventory in bits, right? If you buy in bits, the basic cost implication for you is that you are going to be incurring transportation costs every time that you buy for the goods to be delivered to you. However, if you buy in bulk, you have the advantage of minimizing all of those other extra transport costs, and then also there is a price discount advantage that you can enjoy, right? So typically you would agree with me that if you are buying things in bits, the incremental cost on the items you are buying is higher than if you buy it in bulk. So if you buy something in a carton, let's say milk, if you buy, I'm saying this at the consumer level, right? If you buy milk in a carton, right, it is less expensive than you buy individual tins of milk. And that is what you can implement in your business also. Instead of buying from your supplier in pieces, it's good to find a way to buy them in bulk so that you enjoy price discounts and all of those things. Now, if you have discounted goods in your manufacturing or in your retail or in your services, you have discounted items, it helps you to be more competitive, as we mentioned earlier, so that you wouldn't need to price your items so high. Now, the final thing also is that you may want to find a way to use alternative supplies. So for instance, if your products or your services are such that you require importation, right, try and explore the need for other less expensive yet maintaining the same quality supplier, right? So let's say with this device, right, I would have to import it from China before I'll be able to sell. Is there a similar quality that I can get from Japan, for instance, at a reduced price, or I can get from US or even in Ghana at a reduced price? So that's what we mean. Find an alternative, source for your product or your service. Now, moving on, the next thing we communicate for you to implement, by way of cutting your costs, is to have an employee engagement, right? Engage your employee, involve them in your cost-cutting measures. Let them be part. First and foremost, in fact, have a feedback mechanism, right? Have a feedback mechanism with your employees. Get them to be involved. Let them, give you what they think. Let them tell you what they think about their product, about your services, right? Let them give their input. Because one thing we observe is that when your staff are involved in the operations and in some of the decision making of their business, it helps them to be more committed to the business. The next thing also is to be very transparent in your cost discussions. So for instance, at a certain level of conversation or engagement with your employees, you can get them to understand that there are rising costs that we are incurring in our operations. What can we do? Right. So let's say we run a tech business, for instance, we run a tech business, and then we have observed that there are rising costs for our subscription on a particular tech platform. And that is because we have about 50 people all subscribe. Let's have a discussion. How can we minimize that cost, right? Maybe you may be surprised to know that your employees may suggest that, maybe there's no need for us to have all of this. Maybe I wouldn't need that particular access, so you can remove me so that the cost will come down, or maybe we can share access, blah blah blah. Just have some transparent discussions with your staff, because they are going to help you, to minimize or to have a cost cutting measure. The next thing also is that you train them on efficiency. Like we mentioned, there's the need to implement technology, right? However, if you have technology in place and the people in your employ do not have the knowledge of the technology, it's going to be a waste of time, a waste of effort, a waste of money, right? So train your employees on efficiency. And we understand that this training oftentimes come at a higher cost. So that is why after you have patronized an accounting software like Built, we have put in place some form of training measures, right, that you can give to your employees. We have a lot of videos on the various features on Built. We have a lot of DIY functions on Built that you can use to explore, so that you'll be able to become more efficient in your financial activities. For instance, on invoicing, we have a whole lot of videos on invoicing that will train you on how to become more efficient in, for instance, setting a recurring invoice, setting invoice reminders and all of that, right? So train your employees, give them some platform for training so that they become more efficient, right? Then the final thing also is that give them some form of incentive, right, for cost-cutting ideas. Because, of course, for employees to be very happy with you, you need to give them a certain level of reward. Of course, the reward may not necessarily be money, although that is important, but people do look for recognition. People want to be recognized. People want to be appreciated, right? So in as much as you are going to get their feedback and discuss with them some cost-cutting measures and train them, if they bring you ideas or they bring you, things that is helping your business minimize costs, you need to find a way to appreciate them, to recognize what they do. Now, the final thing we are going to discuss here is that emphasize on quality, right, and not quantity. Emphasize on quality and not quantity. Yes, we are looking at you cutting down costs, but if you think of it very deeply, quality is expensive, agreed, but it may not cost so much. I'll repeat that. Quality is expensive, but it may not cost so much. So in as much as you are cutting down costs, you still need to emphasize quality. And because quality is expensive, right, if you are... So the first thing is the company's reputation. Quality has an implication, and there are long-term effects. In fact, for long-term effects, have quality, what is going to do is that over the long term, there is going to be a certain high level of recognition for your brand. But if you sacrifice quality, it is going to have negative implications on your brand. So in as much as you are cutting down costs, still focus on giving out quality services, giving out quality, product. Do not compromise on that at all. The next thing, quality has a way, of reducing the amount of returns that people, return your goods with, or the negative reviews that they have on your expenses. Cost you more, because if your customers would always have to return what they've bought, you need to get it as a training provider. Right? And the service that you are rendering to the market is not of good quality, it will go a long way to affect your sales. Happy about the quality that you provide is going to boost their morale, and yes, it's going to foster a certain. We say that find a way to measure the success of the strategies that you have put in place. We've discussed a lot of measure, these strategies. We say track the impact of the cost cutting indicators, and these performance indicators can be financial or operational. For some of the financial ones are basically impacts on your margins. Like I mentioned, if your cost is minimized, right, you will still be able to retain. The impact is that it's going to eat up your revenue, right? So find a way to reduce your cost to improve your revenue. Margins, have they gone up? The budget variance, are they favorable or unfavorable? Of course, we expect that you have favorable, budget variances. And then also, how is your revenue growing? What is the level of savings you have achieved from these, strategies that you are implementing, right? So what we are saying is that all that we have discussed, there are many and there is more. You may choose to implement one or all of them, but whichever one you put in place, find a way to track its efficiency or its impact or its effects. And these are some of the financial ones you can look at. Also, on your operations, you can consider something like the process efficiency, right? Now that you have decided to use built software, how is it improving your invoicing? How is it improving your reporting? How is it improving your taxes? Your So find a way to assess the process efficiency. Also, another thing too you can look at is probably your server, and previously we have had to go to